Welcome to 49ers After Dark. That's the famous Jessie Naylor. I'm Grant Cohn. Happy to be here with Jessie. How you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing fantastic, Grant. The famous Jesse Naylor. I think I'm with the famous Grant Cohn is the way that I look at it.
We're both famous because we have YouTube channels, and that makes us somebody in this world.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't you really want to go to a high school reunion and be like, hi, I have a YouTube channel. Have you checked it out? It's something
Yeah,
else.
yeah. Oh, are you subscribed to Last Second Sports? Because if
Oh.
not, loser.
Anyway, title of the show is what the Niners need to do to win the Super Bowl. It's frankly, they need to win 4 games in a row. They've won 10 in a row. I think we're going to break down their path to the Super Bowl, if it's the easiest one in the league. We're going to talk a little bit about Trey Lance as well, who I saw today with my own 2 eyes in the locker room.
Your own
That's the
two
story.
eyes.
He was there. I saw him.
Was he walking? Was he in a boot? Was he on a scooter?
Scooter.
Scooter.
Yeah. Anyway, my question to you to start the show, Jesse, do the Niners have the easiest path to the Super Bowl of any team in the playoffs?
And you would almost automatically want to give it to a team that has a bye in week 1. But these 7th seeds are so bad. They are so bad that when you look at the path, you look at what would come up next, assuming everything goes chalk, the 49ers would play the Vikings, who I think most people assume or think they're complete frauds. And you would look at either Dallas or Tampa going to Philadelphia. I think that's a harder matchup for Philly. If you go to the AFC side, they're going to have to play. Buffalo's going to have to play the Bengals. The Chargers are most likely the matchup for the Chiefs. I think those are much tougher matchups. Yeah, I do. I really think that the 49ers, it's set up very beautifully here for the 49ers to go to the Super Bowl. I think of all the top teams in both conferences, I do think they have the easiest path.
It's hard to argue they have an easier path than Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets a bye week and gets to stay at home.
Okay.
So that's good. I mean, that's helpful. Who would they have to play?
Well, let's assume everything goes
Yeah.
chalk. They're either going to play Tampa or they're going to play Dallas.
Okay, so it could be easier. Still, though, I feel like they may be.
And then they got to
collapsing.
play the 49ers. the 49ers
that's
are
true.
the team.
But the Niners have to play them too. I mean, look,
That's true.
if the Niners end up going to Philly and losing, you could be like, well, Philly had the bye week and they had the home field advantage. And maybe if the Niners had just beaten freaking Chicago week 1 or Denver week 3, they would have played this game in Santa Clara. It is kind of crazy to think that like Dante Pettis is the reason the Niners are the 2 seed, not the 3 seed. Dante.
Yeah, that's pretty crappy to think about. So you've got Chicago, you've got Denver, and you've got the
Atlanta.
Falcons game. Those are the 3 that
games.
they're looking at going, "God, if we could have just won one of these 3 that we should have, just one."
If they don't make it to the Super Bowl, we're going to be talking about how the Niners didn't take care of business early in the season. That's the main reason. Because, I mean, they might be better than Philly. But Philly has 2 distinct advantages if that game happens, which kind of tilts the scales in their favor. Now, maybe the
Home
Niners are
field.
just better.
And what
Home
else?
field and a bye.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if, but you know what though? I don't know if a bye is an advantage because I think you can go either way. I think in a situation where you've got first of all, Jalen Hurts hadn't played for like 3 weeks. He had to play just to win that game. He looked absolutely rusty. Now you're going to give him another 2 weeks off. I don't know. He might come out and look rusty and they might lose to Dallas. We might see Dallas or Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship. Like that's entirely possible. If Philly lost in round 2 to Tampa or Dallas, I wouldn't be overly shocked. If the 49ers lost to the Vikings, I'd be beside myself. There's no way that should happen.
Could I make an argument as to why the bye week is good?
Go ahead.
It's 1 week when no one gets hurt on your team. And I do think there's a reason why everyone wants a bye week. Now, I don't know if there's statistical evidence that says that having a bye week gives you a better chance of winning that week. I don't know. I'm sure there's lots of anecdotal evidence of teams that were rusty coming off a bye still. I feel like the Niners' path, I don't know. I mean, it could have been easier. They could have been the 1 seed. They wanted to be the 1 seed. They tried. They played their guys. They didn't get it because of Dante Pettis week 1, Jimmy Garoppolo stepping out of the back in the end zone week 3, and just a thorough shellacking by the Falcons week, whatever that was. That was surprising to me. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's easy in the sense that they're really good, and it's the NFC. But so you can say they have the second easiest because in the AFC, that's a tough gauntlet over there.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's 4 teams that are just brutal matchups. And even though the Chiefs have the bye, if let's say they have to play the Chargers and then either the Bengals or the Bills, come on, that's a really, really tough path to get through, and vice versa for those other teams. So yeah, I think that I don't know. I guess I could see maybe Philly having the easier path, but I just look at it and say Minnesota's a complete sham. They're a fraud. Seattle is a 10-point dog. I mean, other than injury, those games are like, okay, cool. We're going to walk through those and we're going to come to the NFC Championship.
Can we talk about Minnesota for a second?
Yeah.
Before we write them off entirely? Because there's a high chance the Niners face them next week.
Yep.
Okay. So I think it's hard to just write off Minnesota when the Niners made Jared Stidham and the Raiders look that good.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like Devontae Adams is great. Seeing him in person, oh my God, he's so good. But Justin Jefferson is as good. And Kirk Cousins is better than Stidham. So if the blueprint on the Niners is just chuck it deep and throw 50-50 balls against Diamador Lenore with your best wide receiver, well, they can do that. So that's the only thing. Like, if the Niners are going to be playing shootouts, maybe the Vikings have won those games this year, right?
That's true.
They have.
That's true.
So I wouldn't write out any given Sunday. Anyway, the Niners are the best team in the NFC. They should handle this.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this. What do you think? So if they're 10-point favorites this week, what would you put the betting line at next week? 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, assuming they play Minnesota. I would put it. I bet you it's probably at 6.5 points. Is my guess.
That sounds about right. I just can't get over what happened in Vegas. I was there.
That's true.
It was weird. I mean, that's the number one. I understand like the game didn't mean anything, but you're fighting for that 1 seed, and you're the number 1 defense, and you give up 500 yards and 34 points to the Raiders? Pardon? I don't understand how that happens. And last week was a great bounce back game, but it was David Blau and Trace McSorley. Like, that Vegas thing is still very fresh in my mind. It didn't happen that long ago, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Seattle on Saturday. Geno Smith is better than freaking Jared Stidham. What's going to happen? I know last time the Niners faced Seattle, they did a great job of putting Trevarius Ward on DK most of the game, and that really was great. So that's, we know they're going to do that, but what is Seattle going to do differently? They've seen everyone wants to go deep on the Niners right now, so Seattle is going to try to do that. You know they are. How's that going to go? Lock is pretty good.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think the thing with Minnesota though is that their defense is just atrocious. And so when you look at it, you say, okay, their offense is really good. I also look at that Raider game. It's interesting because we talked last week or the week before, when you have long winning streaks going into the playoffs, it doesn't bode well for teams. We went back to 2000. There was 6 teams that had done it. Only 1 team had won the Super Bowl. That was the 2003 Patriots. However, in this scenario, the Raiders just weren't good enough to beat the 49ers, but that was basically a loss. That's one of those games where you just came out flat. You probably should have lost. If the Raiders were just a little bit better, it would have been a loss. And then you would have been like, okay, that's a loss that we had to have. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're not as good as we think. We got to tighten things up. I think they got the same outcome, but they are just so much better than these teams that they were able to still also get the win while feeling like they lost. And so I think that game in the long term actually gets them to batten down the hatches a little bit.
I feel it. Zach Rivero says, can you guys do a playoff bracket projection live? No. We got way too much on deck for you, man. I can't do all that. Let's just take it one day at a time. Let's take it. We don't even know if we're going to be alive tomorrow. Let's take it one day at a time, all right?
True.
Mike Baker says, Grant, will you wear a Niners jersey? No. Wait for your post-Super Bowl game grades if they win the Super Bowl? No. QC on the loose. Let's go Niners. No, but I got to sneak in my jacket to the stadium if they're in the Super Bowl.
Grant's just out here shattering. 2 for 2 and shattering dreams on Super Chats. Good job, Grant.
Sorry. Nice sweatshirt, Grant. Nice T-shirt, Jesse. Says Jose Julio Flores Campos. Thank you, Jose.
I thought you were wearing an Oregon sweatshirt when we first came on. I'm not going to lie. I saw the big O off to the side.
Gammon Brown says that, Grant, what is that insightful NFL analyst next to you? Who is that insightful NFL analyst next to you? Does he have a channel I could follow? If so, what are they called and how do I find them? Yeah, let's give Jesse a little promotion. He runs Last Second Sports, which is the best channel on YouTube, I would have to say. Number one, if you don't follow it, why? What is your problem? Are you stupid?
Whoa.
That's my pitch.
That's a good if you had an elevator pitch, that's a good one. You're right. I mean, we've basically ostracized our high school classmates, calling them stupid tonight. You've already shattered 2 dreams in super chats, and now everybody in the chat that's not subscribed to my channel is also stupid. This is a great start, Grant. I like this.
I'm good. I'm a natural. I'm Mr. 99 says, LOL, what if the Giants win? Tampa or Dallas coming?
That's true. That's a possibility.
That's true. All right, we got more topics. I got a question for you. What should Deebo Samuel's role be? Because the offense was great with literally him not on the field, and now they have to find a way to integrate him in an efficient way. How do they do that?
I mean, when I look at Deebo Samuel, just as a pure pass catcher, I mean, what is he? 3rd, 4th option? I mean, realistically, just
4th.
Pure route runner, pure pass catcher.
Frankly, 5th. I'll take Jawan. Like, if it gotta have it, it's Jawan.
Okay.
3rd and 10, Jawan. Red zone, Jawan. Okay. I mean, if you're banking on, well, he might catch the ball and then run for a bunch of yards after it, then Deebo, of course. But
of course. So
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So that right there is like, okay, 3rd, 4th option, whatever in the pure passing game. Running game, that's where he really cut his chops last year. But is he what? 3rd option in that scenario? I mean, you got Mitchell, you got CMC, probably him over Mason, I would imagine is what they would want to do there. So you have to get creative and play to his strengths. I think his role has to be very 2019. I think a lot of screens, a lot of screen game, a lot of end arounds. Just find a way to get the ball in his hands and find a way to get him on the perimeter again, because you're not gonna get him to 8 to 10 touches. Like, that's not who he has to be anymore. But in his 5 to 7 touches or 5 or 6 touches, can you get him in favorable situations, favorable matchups where he's matched up with DBs and has to break those tackles, which he can do on a regular basis? That has to be his role. If he doesn't do that, I just don't find a way for him to get more than 2 or 3 touches a game. They have to be creative with Deebo Samuel. Use him almost, I hate to say it, but he's kind of a gadget player now. That's what he is.
See, but what's the problem with that for me is that at least this season, Ray's better at that. Like everything you just said, screens, end around, sweet. Like, yeah, Ray's been more explosive than Deebo on that this year. So I don't even like that. Like, they took Ray out of that role in this last game and put Deebo in it, and I thought it suffered. So I don't know, man. They pay him too much money for them to just give up on him as a wide receiver and say, you're a gadget player. Here's 3 screens and 2 carries. Can they get him down the field at all? No one's expecting it. I mean, can you catch the ball, Deebo? Like, what is the problem here? What are we afraid of? They gave him all this money, and they're like, there's only like 2 things he can do. No, man. How about like some deep crossing routes? Or is it just at this point, like, it's a waste? You just might as well throw it to Aiyuk. I don't get it, man. Can you get some big plays out of Deebo, please? It's been, how many's he had this year? 2? Can we get some big plays? That's what they're paying him for.
The Rams, the first Rams game. And then he had an end around on a run, right?
Yeah, the 1 touchdown against whatever. Yeah, like 3 plays.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't need to play him at running back anymore. He just got hurt playing that position. You got 4 running backs. I mean, Ray's a better gadget player than him right now. Like, dude, can you play wide receiver and get down the field? I don't know. It would be great. Because Danny Gray's not doing it. Hey, you be the deep threat, Deebo. Run fast.
Is his role to be a decoy? Is that his role now in this playoff run?
I think so. I think that's probably the thing to do. I mean, he's not in football shape. He's gotten hurt. It's not. I mean, it's partially his fault, but it's also the fact that he's hurt. So if he's not going to get there this year, he got like a month left to get into football? It's not going to happen. Yeah. So he still draws 11 eyes when he goes in motion. So use all that and give him a few touches to keep him engaged. But really, frankly, Deebo, you haven't earned it this year. And there's like 5. I mean, I mentioned Jawan, Ray. There's use check. There's a lot of guys who've been playing their asses off who are in peak physical condition that earned it. So you got to be on the field, but maybe you got to be I had people calling him Decoy Samuel in my chat.
Decoy Samuel.
Sorry.
But see, and that's the thing is, I'm actually not looking at this as like a disrespectful thing. I just don't know what his role is yet. And maybe Shanahan has it defined. Maybe he's going to do something we're not expecting. But I don't think being a decoy is a bad thing. Now, long term, it is. You didn't pay him to be a decoy. But if he really can draw eyes and get everybody else open, and you can motion him around and get creative with them, maybe get him a matchup with a linebacker every once in a while on a Texas route or a wheel route or something like that. Like, I'm cool with that as long as they win. I think long term it does become an issue if that's all he is. But for this playoff run, if that's all he has to be, or he can bring that to the table to get other guys open, I don't necessarily look at that as like a slight or a bad thing for this team right now.
Last year when he had that remarkable record-setting year, I don't know if it was record-setting, but it was great.
Yeah,
he was doing more than running back and screens. He caught a lot of slants and digs, a lot of stuff over the middle, like short and intermediate, where he catch the ball and run and gain yards after the catch. Where is that now? The slants and the digs, they don't trust him on that anymore. It's like but he was dropping passes last year too. I don't know what the deal is, but all of a sudden when it's time to call those plays, it's Aiyuk. It's Aiyuk 1, Jennings 2. So I don't know, like, can you not? Because if you get the ball to Deebo on that play, he's going to do a lot more after the catch than Aiyuk or Jennings. It's just that, like, for some reason, Kyle doesn't trust him to catch the ball anymore or get open. I don't know what it is, but that's your guy. You're paying him. You can't just give up on those. Those are his home run plays. And what's crazy about this season for Deebo is all of his catches are behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Really? You gave him all this money. Like, you can't reduce his role like that. You got to get him down the field, I think.
I think CMC being here, and I also think Jimmy not being the quarterback really hurts what he brings to the team, because he had chemistry with Jimmy. He played with him for a couple years. He has none of that built up with Purdy because he's been injured when Purdy played. He had none of that built up with Trey Lance. And so because of those things, it makes it really, really difficult to get involved in the offense.
Also, he was never in tip-top shape this year. He sat out the whole offseason. He came in what seemed to be 5 pounds overweight, and then never could really quite be healthy long enough to get into shape on the fly. Couldn't do it. Which was kind of like 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, and when you're injured, it's hard to. You're rehabbing. You're not getting in shape, you're rehabbing.
It's true. I'm not saying he dogged it. I mean, that's just sort of like what naturally happens when you hold out and get hurt. That's what happens. For sure. So next year, he could be there every step of the way, not get hurt, have a dominant season.
Yes.
But that's not the Deebo we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Deebo coming off an injury, trying to fit his way back into an offense that is frankly a juggernaut without him.
Right.
So like, they could actually get themselves out of rhythm by forcing him 7 touches, 7 opportunities, 7 plays his way. Like, let's find something he does. Because my question right now is, what play, what route, whatever concept does he do better than anyone else in the team right now? I don't know. Is it the sweep? Is it the screen? Like, nah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The burden's on him to show us what it is.
For sure. You're right. And right now we're talking about a different Deebo. If this was Deebo last year,
my God, he was
in shape. Yeah.
He was the best option on everything. This year, it's not that way. And that's just the NFL for you.
Right.
Saul Goodman, man, I love your show. Says, I think Seattle will start hot with trick plays and put 2 scores in the first half and nothing after. And then Niners will dominate the rest of the game and win. I think that's a good strategy if you're an opponent. The Niners defense has been kind of sleepy early on in a lot of games. You know, Chargers, get them early.
Yeah, that's true.
Or get them not at all.
Yeah.
Antonio says, Jesse, love the optimism, but as a Niner fan, you should know Seahawks always play hard. Rating evens the matchup. Plus, Carroll playing mind games. This is
not the same Seattle team. This is not a Seattle team with Russell Wilson. The Seattle team that we are seeing right now completely overachieved. That is credit to Pete Carroll. They should have been one of the worst teams in the league. They should have had the pick that Denver had based off of their record. Mm-hmm. They've overachieved, and that's, again, kudos to Carroll. But this team, talent for talent, is not on the 49ers level. This team is missing probably their 2 best defenders going into the season. They're out for the year. I just don't see a way that they stop the 49ers. And I get it. They play in rain. They're used to rain, all those things. Brock Purdy can throw in the rain. 1, he did it in college. No issue. 2, CMC is the great equalizer. I I can't see this game being close. Maybe that's being a homer, but I really do not see it.
I'm Mr. 99 says if we get upset, I'm going to be sick. Fire everyone, LOL. Oh, my God. Can you imagine if they lose this game to the 7th seed? Deontay says Deebo got his money, rather be a celebrity than Jerry Rice. Is he even a celebrity? Is he? He goes to Warrior games sometimes and eats Mike and Ike's, but other than that, like, is he out and about on red carpets? I don't know. Abated Impala, what a name. Thank you so much. Josh Wyatt says Deebo doesn't separate like he used to, and he never separated well to begin with. Watch the tape. It's not because of his hands. Aiyuk drops passes too. Damn.
Sounds like a beginning of a love song. You don't separate the way you used to. It's like a 49ers R&B song.
So far, that contract has been horrendous.
Yeah. So
but I mean, he's got time to redeem himself. Gammon Brown.
They also, by the way, they also did it. I mean, there's a reason that they made it a short-term contract.
Dude, what is Gammon doing? Gammon's giving me
hell of money. Outbidding Antonio is what it looks like.
Yeah, but that was pesos.
That was peso. That was $5.
That was $5. What are you
That was
doing?
$5. Gammon, you outbid him by $125.
What are you doing, Antonio? Man, Gammon, thank you very much. I owe you. Do you want me to like PayPal you back this money? Because anyway, 130 is less besmirching figure. Sorry, rookie. Take this as an expensive lesson. Church is open, pass the plate. I mean, that is just the most amazing self-own of all time. Gammon, I love you, but wow, you really had that coming on that one.
Gammon's the best, man. And I like how he set up like, hey, does Jesse have a channel? He's like paid $5 just to promote that I've got a channel, like the nicest guy ever. And then he thinks somebody puts up $129. He's like, you know what? 130.
Gammon, next time you're in town, let me know. I'll take you out for a burger and a drink.
Yeah,
this is a good way to set up a meet and greet with me. Gammon, I owe you. Are you kidding me? $130? You got played. I don't know. When I went to Mexico, I thought the conversion rate was 10-1. Turns out 20-1. Oh, my God. Who knew? Mike Baker says, at Jesse, we expect Grant to abuse us Niner fans. Can you say Stockholm Syndrome?
Told you.
Hey, the Niners abuse Niner fans. I don't. Tommy says, Jesse, my guy, making me feel better about the game.
That's right. You should.
Diego says, courtside Samuel, give that money to Aiyuk and JJ. Courtside Samuel.
He is always courtside.
At the Warrior games. House of Jello says, real talk, Carroll better than Belichick. It's an interesting question. Like, Carroll never had Tom Brady. Let's see what Belichick does without Brady. So far, I mean, the whole Matt Patricia offensive coordinator thing is embarrassing. You'd have to say.
He wasn't very good in Cleveland either. So,
all right, I got another question for you. No, I got a story from this is just real quick, but this happened today in the locker room and it killed me. All right, so D'Amico Ryans does his interview and then he's done, and then everyone scurries, the press scurries from the interview room to the locker room, and I'm thinking, what's the point? We're only going to be there for a couple minutes before, Brock Purdy comes back. So I go in there and there's not a heated argument, but like a animated argument going on between Brandon Aiyuk and Deommodore Lenoir and Samuel Womack. And all it is Brandon Aiyuk being like, pointing at Deommodore and Womack and being like, you're slow. You've always been slow. You're always going to be slow. And like Deommodore and Samuel Womack are like, Samuel Womack's like, I ran a 4.3. He's like, it's literally why I'm on the team, because I'm fast. And it was like both of these corners were incredulous. Like, what are you talking? And they're both faster than Aiyuk, like time-wise. And Aiyuk is just like, so I was like, this is a really strange argument. And then I had to leave because Brock Purdy went to talk. So Brock Purdy talked, and then that was 10 minutes. And then Chris Forster talked, and that was another 10 minutes. So I come back 20 minutes later. They're still arguing. And Aiyuk's still like, you're slow. You've always been slow. It's like, wow, that is so childish, but at the same time, it's so hilarious. And I thought it was really funny. It's like, man, that's your teammate. He's dealing with confidence issues right now. Why are you doing this to him? I thought that was hilarious. Let it go.
Man, Aiyuk is not slowly. He's becoming one of my favorite players, and it really started in the offseason and his leadership and all these other things. The fight with Fred Warner. I really, really love Brandon Aiyuk. And it's funny that he's reenacting basically your show from 2 years ago when you were calling Richard Sherman slow. That's
Sorry,
what that situation was.
I called him out. I was like,
You're
I'm faster
slow.
than you.
You've always
Yeah.
been slow.
I was like, why do you care? And it was like, it kept going. It's like, well, why don't we check the GPS? What's your fastest time ever? It was like a 21 something. And they were like going on and on. And I was like, man, this is the dumbest argument of all time. But it's entertaining.
Yeah.
But it's entertaining. I love it.
That right there is testosterone flowing in the locker room.
Yeah, go race right now. You want to end the argument? Like, really going to argue about it for 20 minutes? Go race.
No, we can't pull a hamstring. We've got a playoff game.
Nope. Got to yell about it. So I loved. That's the best thing about being a guy is like stupid arguments like that. Best thing about being a guy. And absolutely.
So besides that, I mean, that basically what I'm hearing is that Aiyuk is just completely out of his shell. He is totally himself now. And I love that. He's got complete freedom and autonomy just to be him.
And keep in mind that was after practice. So something must have happened in practice. Now, usually it's not one-on-ones. It's like scout team on, but it kind of felt like they went one-on-one at some point and something happened and they needed to talk about it forever after.
You probably routed him up because that's what he does.
I don't know, but I thought it was hella funny. Like I felt like it's the kind of argument we had as kids on the playground when you're 8. Who's faster? And it wasn't just like who's faster. He would just say, "You're slow." It's like, what do you mean he's slow? He literally ran a 4.4 at the. He's not slow. He's but he's actually faster than you. But anyway, I thought that was Gotta love Brandon Aiyuk. He was so adamant about it. Swizzy 80, he's salty, man. Brandon is super salty. I don't know how to explain his personality very much, but he's salty. Swizzy 81 says Purdy is doing so well because he played throughout high school and played 4 years in Iowa. Came to the NFL and didn't have to wait long to see the field again. Most rookie quarterbacks sit for a while. He is seasoned. That's why he looks so comfy. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, he has a crazy amount of experience for someone who's actually very young, and that's pretty rare. And also, he's a better athlete than I realized. Arm isn't stronger than I thought, but he's a better athlete than I realized, and all that experience helps.
For sure. Yeah,
I didn't know he could run around like this.
Yeah, I think people look at 40 times GPS, kind of like what Aiyuk said or whatever, but it's really the 10-yard splits, and his 10-yard split was right. I think it was the same as Christian McCaffrey's.
Crazy, and it really does show. Gaiman Brown says, Grant, I'd settle to have my book autographed by your dad. Gloves off. TBH, I loved your dad's work and would love to have a burger with him. He straight up turned me down. He was like, hey, could I have your dad instead?
Yeah. I love it.
I was like, Gaiman, I'll take you out. He's like, yeah, how about your dad? Hey, deal. Although I'll probably have to be there too because my dad would be like, I don't know that guy.
Yeah. He's like, who are we going to see?
No, I respect him.
From around the way.
Come on, one of the. Yeah. All right. Let's say the Niners beat the Seattle Seahawks. Let's go out on a limb.
Yeah, exactly.
And say the Niners pull off, not the upset, the expected, and they beat the Seahawks by what, 10? Is that the spread? Yeah. Would that qualify as Brock Purdy earning his playoff stripes?
I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for. Is like, okay, I want to see him do it in the playoffs, and once he does it, then I'll feel comfortable. I don't think this is the game to earn his stripes. Not on the surface. I'll say that. If they go out and they just do what they should do in this game and they win it going away, all right, we know that they should beat Seattle. Like, this isn't the game for us to go crazy and think that he's fully arrived. However, if the game gets interesting and it turns into a shootout, he absolutely can earn his stripes in this game. If this game has to be won on his right arm, then he earns his stripes. I just don't think Seattle's good enough to do that. I don't think that they're good enough to put Purdy in these situations that are going to warrant him having to go and just play lone wolf and go win games. So, no, I don't think this is the game ultimately that he earns his playoff stripes. It'll come, but I just don't think this is the one.
Yeah, if they win this game, running the ball, even just beating Seattle again in a playoff game doesn't necessarily mean that Brock Purdy is the franchise quarterback of the 49ers. I mean, frankly, it's expected, even though he's a rookie. And if they lose this game, doors wide open for Trey Lance, hell, even Jimmy Garoppolo to say, hey, I know, right? I know. But I'm right. Yeah, if he loses this game, there's going to be a large segment of certain 49er fans being like, oh, right? in that voice. With that, with that
absolutely. There is a group of fans that are holding on to that. Jimmy brought us to a Super Bowl, brought us to an NFC Championship. So if Brock doesn't get him at least that far, then it's like, well,
telling you.
I mean, you can't do it without Jimmy.
Right. That's right. So
he could lose his stripes, I guess.
No, frankly, if this game is even close, people are going to be like, what? Like, this is supposed to be another 38-10 victory. 38-14, maybe 17. If they get to 20, people are going to be like, what? Seriously.
I hope that Purdy, that they blow Seattle out. Purdy has 8 attempts, and then I'm going to tell everybody that he is arrived. That's what I hope happens.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, it's going to be the first time he faces a team for the second time. Pete Carroll is legit. But maybe Purdy is too. Maybe the Niners are too. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I want to see. Because to me, it seems like
Carroll's legit.
He is legit. And I feel like this is a tougher
defense
matchup.
Is not. The players are not.
Diggs is. What's his name? Tariq Woolen. He is. Nwosu is. I mean, their run defense isn't, but still. And again, I'm not picking the Seahawks to win. I just feel like of all the 7 seeds you could face, this is probably the toughest, best coached, most overachieving one. Like Green Bay, what a bunch of losers they are. And they proved it at home against the Lions. Thank you very much. The Lions to me are like the Seahawks, but not. They're very like they're like the Seahawks. Tough, well-coached team with a good story at quarterback.
Lions would have been fun. Lions would have been at least it would have been something different. It's, of course, I'm excited because it's the playoffs, but I just so fully expect them to win that I don't know. I guess the playoff excitement in at least me is not fully there yet because it's like, okay, they're gonna blow them out. Now next week, hopefully, like it'll arrive and it'll feel like the playoffs. I just feel like this, like, it's Seattle, like whatever. They're gonna smash them.
Like you're a 7 seed, you're not a playoff team. Like,
yeah, that's how I feel.
You got the participation trophy.
Like Buffalo has to play Miami without Tua. I'm like, oh, that is the most worthless playoff game that we're gonna watch this whole weekend.
If you think about it, like 4 years ago, the Niners would have had a bye week. But no, they have to play because the NFL wants to get a participation trophy team in the dance. And so, okay, so now that, all right, so let's see the Niners take care of business.
Yep.
Richard G. Personal Touch says, so I don't know if it's true, but apparently we play in Philly next year. It's true. Would you guys be in attendance? And if so, would there be a chance of a meet and greet? Would love to meet you all. I will be in attendance. And we could probably work something out since you just paid me $10. So let's talk about it.
It doesn't take a lot to buy Grant's love. Now, he'll still berate you, but he'll also give you love.
Yeah, I'm an asshole. Meet me at your own risk.
Yeah.
Jesse still hasn't met me in person because he knows it could go very wrong.
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's like when you just hold somebody up on a pedestal and you're like,
that's what it is.
Gosh, I really hope they don't disappoint. I'm just worried he's going to disappoint.
That's what I do.
Really
that's what I do. Diego says first team Purdy has faced twice. They've adjusted. Maybe he's adjusted too, though.
Here's the thing: is I fully agree with that statement. I think they've adjusted. I think Pete Carroll will do everything he can to try to make this tough on Purdy. The problem is you also have to have the players to do it, and when you're without arguably, at the very least, 2 of their top 4 defenders in this game, they don't have the players to get it done. You can have a great scheme, but they don't have the player. If Diggs got an interception this week, I'd be like, okay, I kind of, I could see that happening. Outside of that, like he
dropped one on Thursday night, right?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he did. And so, and he roams around. He can disguise things. I could see a scenario where that might happen. But Woolen is good, but all you have to do is just stay away from Woolen.
Exactly, and they did. They won't. That's what they're going to do.
I don't see it. I just don't see it.
No, me neither. I don't see it either. It's just the game that we're talking about this week. Gregory Young says, loved how Pete Carroll immediately said the Niners' identity, and I always is and always has been the defense. Should be a good game.
Oh, is it though?
We're going to talk about that. LOL Gammon says Antonio. Gammon, that's hilarious. All-timer around. Town Collective says, considering Purdy's situation, how do you feel he does during press interviews? Always enjoy watching you two. Great content, guys. I think he's just phenomenal in interviews. I think he does a great job. If you give him a good question, he rises to the occasion every time. That being said, Trey was really good too. Trey just wasn't answering questions in about after games that mattered. He was answering questions in training camp and stuff like that. But Brock's great.
I think what I like about both of them is they can recall things that happened in the game, like photographic memory style. I remember when Trey, I think it was after the second game, the Texans game. It's like, yeah, what happened on that pick in the first quarter or whatever? He's like, well, I thought it was cover 2, and then they rolled this way, and I saw this, and it's like he just broke the whole thing down. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And you took blame. I love that. And Purdy's the same way. Purdy is similar, but he does it in a little bit of a different style where he just heaps all the praise on everybody around him. It's like, oh, gee, golly, it's not me, and I'm just here to be a point guard and get in their hand. I love that about him. I really do. I love that about Purdy.
It's funny. I normally just pay attention to you at the co-host and the super chats. But every once in a while I look at the comments, and it's hilarious because it's like the meanest hecklers of all time. And I really love it because it's like a bunch of people that don't ever give super chats and really would never, really don't like me at all or you. And they just say the meanest shit constantly. I think it's freaking hilarious. So shout out to the people in the chat. So this is what? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so when I'm on other shows, I usually will look at the comments. I don't on yours because it's just too much to keep up with. But like a channel that's smaller like mine, I read pretty much almost all the comments, and I try to put a ton up on screen. I don't get it as much, but here it's like it's buried. I'm sure if I went back, there's a ton of trash talking. I don't mind it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you hate somebody, hate watching them is lining their pockets. So
the way I look at it is like as you get bigger and you get more subscribers, you get more people that don't like you or whatever. You just get the whole gamut. And it's just, you always get the whole spectrum of people. But as you get more followers, there's just more in each category. And some people want to stand out, so they're a little louder about it or a little unique about it. And and it's just part of it. It's just part of it. You got to love it. You got to take it in stride. Rooster Man says, do we know if it's going to be a wet game or closely similar to the Bears game? Or if so, will Purdy be the factor? From what I understand, it's going to rain before, but not so much during it. So it might be more about like a wet field than like a wet ball is what I'm hearing.
I think I think 3 things to factor in. If it's a heavy rain game, let's say it's like Chicago, 3 factors. Actually 4. 1, they've played in it already, so they've got that preparation. I know it was a while ago, but they played in it. 2, this is much later in the season, so you've kind of worked out the kinks of who you are. It's not week 1 where you're trying to figure out who you are, especially with the new quarterback and all the things that were going on. And 3, they've got 2 major weapons that are on this team now that weren't there in week 1. CMC, George Kittle. So you get those things going, and I think that the 49ers will be just fine.
Richard says, if you don't have haters, you aren't doing it right. That is true. Keith Murphy says, as you get bigger, you get more subscribers. Here, I'm sending you $1.99 and $5 chats. You get $100. Grant Balling. All right, I got it. This is an interesting topic. I think it's not really relevant to the season, but it's on everyone's mind. What to do with Trey Lance? Do you stash him as the backup on this team, or does his trade value drop the longer he sits? If the Niners decide that Brock Purdy is the one for them, does it make sense to keep Trey Lance just in case as a high-level backup, or does it hurt them to keep him on the bench not playing indefinitely? What do you think?
I mean, just to answer the question, I think 100% the longer he sits, the trade value drops. I mean, the fact the way that his 2 seasons have already played out, it's dropped significantly. The talk going into this offseason was if he was in this last year's draft, he would have been the number 1 player off the draft.
Right.
And I agree. Right. I think we all agreed with that.
Mm-hmm.
However, now we go into this draft, there's 2 possibly 3 high coveted quarterbacks that are coming out, and he's now gotten injured. And so if he's sitting next year and it's not because there's a veteran there and it's because there's a quarterback who came in the league a year after him, was the last pick in the draft and took his starting job, where's the value at? I mean, there's almost no value there. So if that is the case, I think you would have to keep him as the backup because, as we know, quarterbacks do get injured in this system. They've been down to their 4th quarterback or 3rd quarterback, I think 4 years since Shanahan has been here, and it almost happened again last year. So, yeah, I think just having both quarterbacks is probably a lot more valuable than whatever pick that you would get for him at the trade deadline next year or whatever that looks like. So I think yes, the obvious answer is the longer he sits, the more that value goes down.
So here's my problem. And I originally was against trading Lance, but it seems to me that if the Niners decide Brock's their guy, and they haven't decided that yet, there's the whole playoffs that have to go. But let's say he wins the Super Bowl and he's freaking Kurt Warner and he's great. And they're like, you know what? We didn't see it coming, but he's our guy. Trey, you might be someone else's guy, but you're not ours. What you are now is our backup. You could get a backup quarterback for cheaper. And if that's all his value is to you, then you can start, like, is he worth more to you in a trade? And my question is, if you trade him this year with 2 years left on his rookie deal before the 5th-year option, is he worth more than if you sit him for another year?
Yes.
And then try to – so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you traded him this year, you might get a second and then a conditional pick that could be a first in the future. If you don't and you make him a backup for another year and you trade him the year after that with 1 year left on his deal, like you're getting very little for him.
Yeah.
And if you're just concerned about having a backup, like, dude, you could trade him and draft another quarterback who's a backup or sign a guy who's a backup. I don't know. I just feel like if you feel super confident in Brock, it not only would it be the right thing to do for Trey, it'd probably be the right thing to do for your franchise is to get just to salvage it. That being said, you know the Niners won't do that. They're not going to trade Trey. Let me make that real clear. They're not going to trade Trey Lance. They're not the kind of team that sells low or admits a mistake. I mean, look what they did with Jimmy Garoppolo forever. So they're not going to do it. But I think it's worth talking about if Brock's the guy, what are we really doing with Trey? What are we really doing here? He's the backup. Okay.
I think, okay, obviously it's better for Trey if he's going to be the backup that they trade him. I get that. I think it's better for the franchise if they keep him. And here's why. Let's say you trade him for a second. He goes to the Saints, the Colts, something like that. Mm-hmm. And, oh shit, he is going to be a top 10 quarterback. He's everything that you thought he was going to be coming out of the draft. Maybe Purdy doesn't play great. Like that, there is that scenario that could happen, right? Like, let's say Purdy doesn't play all that great. The book's out on him. He has an off year. Okay. So how do you really look? Because you wasted all these picks on him. Then you traded him for pennies on the dollar. And he's exactly who you thought he was. You just got impatient. And the guy that you kept isn't what you thought he is. Now, how bad does it look? I just
that's right there why they won't trade him.
Worst case scenario.
It's not going to happen.
It's not worth
they're not going to trade him. They're not, because that could happen right there. But it's like, if you have the conviction of, like, we're sold on Brock, then okay. Then make a move. Because if you need to see more and you keep sitting on the fence, and you finally decide that Brock's your guy next year, and then you decide to trade Trey, well, you just lost value. Yeah. But maybe whatever value you lose from that year, maybe it's worth it to just gain more evidence. Maybe it's okay, he goes from getting a second and a first to a second and a third, but at least we gave ourselves another year to really know for sure that Brock was our guy. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's worth it. Like call it paying for confirmation. You can look at it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair thing to do. I mean, again, is it the right thing to do for Trey? No, but unfortunately, this is a business. You do own his rights.
It's true.
And you're paying him the money to be on your roster. So I don't think there's any harm in saying, okay, it's great, regardless of how these playoffs go. Let's say, Purdy balls out, they win the Super Bowl. Maybe you do want to see it for another season. I mean, there's
It's fair.
Players have done this before. Again, we've talked about the Nick Foles. We've talked about the Flacco. I'm not saying it would be that, but it could be. So why not at least, hey, we've got the guy here, or a guy that we thought was the guy. Maybe he's not. We think it's Purdy, but we're also not sure. Maybe the book's out on him next year. I don't know. We just want to see it for another year. Go out and prove it. We're going to give you the keys. As long as you can continue to do it, then Trey's out of here, whatever. But I think that's totally fair to do as an organization.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As long as you keep Trey here, it keeps the pressure on Brock. You're not the starter. I mean, you're the starter today. As long as you keep it going, like you're that pitcher in the game who's throwing a perfect game, so we can't take you out.
Yeah.
But we never thought you'd be throwing a perfect game. So keep going. But at a certain point, we're sort of expecting this to all come back to earth, maybe. So yeah, I mean, keeping Trey there sends the message to Brock, like, we're not anointing you. You got to keep doing what you're doing. Maybe it brings out the best in both of them. Maybe it does. Maybe this is a good dynamic.
For sure. I think it definitely could. But also, let's look at how this organization handled Trey. Did they make it easy on Trey? I mean, sure, everybody's like, well, he was just given the job. He never earned it. It's like, well, yeah, but even when they gave him the job, they still brought back the guy that everybody wanted to play. So did they really fully give it to him? No. So why would you then in turn make it easy for the next guy? That's what they've shown. That's how they handle quarterbacks. And quite frankly, I think Jimmy probably could have benefited from being pushed and not being given the job the way he was. So yeah, I think it does bring the best out. And I think for Brock Purdy, who's on this inexpensive contract, yes, he plays well, wins the Super Bowl, whatever. I think that it's totally fair to have somebody behind him that he knows that they like and is like, well, I got to continue to earn it every week. I mean, I'm still Mr. Irrelevant. I think having that mentality brings the best out of him. I don't think that there's anything wrong in doing that.
Well, it's working so far. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about. And again, if Brock Purdy loses this week, then you're not anointing him the franchise quarterback and trading Trey Lance. And all of a sudden you're thinking about maybe the whole Brock Purdy thing was a mirage. Maybe Trey Lance is the guy going forward. Who knows? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Anthony Cook says, what game was worse conditions, 19 DC or 22 Chicago? I wasn't there in DC at 19. I think it was that game because the Chicago one was actually okay for a few quarters until the end.
Yeah.
Keith Murphy says, agreed.
Okay, here's a question though too. Let's flip it. Let's say the opposite happens. They don't win the Super Bowl. They lose. They get beat by Seattle, like worst case scenario. But Purdy still looks good. They lose off of something fluky, but Purdy looks fine. They decide next year that Trey's the guy. Do you trade Purdy? I think the answer to that's probably no, right?
No, I wouldn't trade Purdy.
So I think it's.
But again, with Purdy, it's different though. Purdy's different. Purdy is cheap, and you have 3 years of contractual control. Like Trey's getting up against it. Like you got to make a decision. He's got 2 years left, and if you don't trade him, then he got 1 year left. So you got to you just have to make a decision. What do you want to do with Trey? Are you not sold with Brock, and do you want to keep Trey because you're hedging your bets? If so, fine. If you're sold with Brock, what are you keeping Trey for? To be just because you want a good backup? You can get a good backup. What you need is that first round pick conditional that you might be able to get from Trey now that you won't get in a year. So the Niners have to decide what they want to do and how they feel about Brock.
It is different to a certain extent. I mean, it's not as cheap, but you always have the 5th year option with Trey. But let's say
that's super expensive.
It is, but it's not. It's also not. It's still not like top 5 quarter. It's not top 3 quarterback money or whatever it is. It's not. You're not paying him $50 million a year.
No, you're paying him 20.
So okay. So either way, you have 2 years versus 3 years, but it's all about assets. If you really think like, listen, Kyle Shanahan made Brock Purdy look amazing. We don't give a crap. Like Trey's our guy. It was a cool little story, but still Mr. Irrelevant. We just turned a 7th round pick into a 2nd or a late first round pick. I mean, you're not if Trey is your guy, and it's always been that way. I mean, we could have the conversation the other way. I think
Kyle hasn't had this kind of success with other quarterbacks.
I agree.
He's had success with like Matt Ryan and Purdy.
I agree. So I'm just saying. It's funny because everybody's willing to have the conversation about Trey. It's like, well, if Purdy's the guy, we're willing to have the conversation about trading Trey. But if the organization still thinks that Trey's the guy and it's not Purdy, then why is nobody willing to have the conversation the other way? I just find that an interesting dynamic. It doesn't matter what we think. They may think that Trey is still the guy. And I'm not saying they do, but there is that world that is out there where it's like, listen, we still want Trey Lance to be our guy. We invested all this in him. We really believe in him. None of this matters. We think that Kyle is making Purdy look like that's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a high likelihood, but if that exists, why can't we have the conversation the other way? Especially if you're flipping us the last pick in the draft for a second rounder.
Because he's a quarterback who's under control for the next 3 years at like $900K a year, and he's undefeated, and he has the highest quarterback rating in the league. Like, why would you
But I'm saying if he loses to Seattle is the scenario that I'm throwing out.
I mean, if he loses to Seattle and he throws 5 picks, then absolutely. But at that point, his trade value goes down. So it's, wouldn't be there. Keith Murphy says, agree, Jesse. Next year is Caleb Williams' year, so Lance wouldn't go over him. Yeah, I mean, if any team's going to trade like something valuable for Lance, they could be like, do I trade for a second-round pick for Trey Lance, who hasn't played in 4 years, or just spend a second-round pick on this quarterback from Fresno, Texas,
State University?
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, at a certain point, like, the Niners have turned Trey Lance into Jordan Love, and it sucks, and it's not his fault, but it's what they did. And the longer they keep him on the bench, the more he becomes Jordan Love. Does Trey? Hold on. Why do the Niners struggle in the rain? Rains in SF. Do they?
I mean, I guess technically if you look at it, they lost to Chicago. They lost to Baltimore. They barely beat Washington. They lost to the Colts. Yeah, I mean, historically, but that's all pre-CMC.
And they've been practicing in it for the last few weeks, so they should be all right.
Yeah.
Renald Sainton says, watch your video from preseason helping the Niners fix Trey Lance's footwork to see what you said about BP on the over-the-mat drill of all 3 quarterbacks. Okay. Got you. Yeah.
What do you say?
that Purdy has good footwork. Gambit Brown says that, Jesse, what were the immediate and long-term effects mentally after you made national headlines on Trent Williams telling run-pass plays?
Literally nothing. It's a pinned tweet. I thought it was funny. Yeah, nothing. Nothing changed. Nothing changes when you go viral, I promise.
Brock Purdy's balls says, love the channel, Grant. Maybe put a limiter on your mic. You like to yell and it makes my wife mad. I don't do earbuds. Go Niners. You have a great microphone. I'm going to buy the one that he has. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because I'm living minute by minute and I'm just grinding. It's hard, but I'm going to do it. It's freaking playoffs. No excuses.
He's a grinder.
Grinding. Lucas says, Jesse hit the nail on the head. If Lance is good on any other team and Brock flops, everyone is fired. Right. And maybe that's reason enough to keep this going, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs. Kyler V says, I might have to work on my jersey investment skills. I have a Trey Lance and James Wiseman jersey, and who the hell knows how they'll turn out. Damn, Kyler.
Yeah. Just word of advice here. I went crazy, and of course, like I have a ton of signatures. I love to collect them. When Kaepernick was the guy, I got the signature. When Jimmy was the guy, I almost got the signature, didn't do it. Lance, I almost got it. Just be patient. Wait it out a couple of years before you go get the jersey and know that they're the long-term guy, because buying it early, it's like, it's a crapshoot, man. It really is.
Jason says, should they start Trey next year when he's 100%? But if he struggles, they should start Trey next year when he's 100%. But if he struggles, there will definitely be a quarterback controversy.
I just have a quarterback competition, man. Like, F all else. F all else. Both of these guys are 23 years old. They're both on rookie contracts. You drafted both of them. You believed everything you had in Trey Lance, and you went and got him and traded all those picks for him. You've seen Brock Purdy. You've got to believe in what you're seeing from him. Who does it hurt to have a quarterback competition? I think
potentially both quarterbacks, because you cut their snaps in half in training camp. Potentially both of them. And it's like, you really telling me that if Trey Lance completes 67% of his throws in camp and Brock Purdy completes 65%, that you're going with Trey Lance, given what Brock Purdy did in playoff games, potentially? I mean, we don't know what he's done yet, but it just seems like I don't see how Trey Lance can compete. It's not his fault. But there's nothing he can do in a practice that outweighs what this dude has accomplished in the NFL so far.
I think
not his fault.
I think either way, even if you have a perceived, even if it's not a real competition, but you perceive it to be, I think you can push both of these guys to get the best out of them. I really do.
Am I wrong to say that coaches don't want quarterback controversies or quarterback competitions at all? They don't want them. They don't want them. They don't want people like me saying, "Hey, so there was a quarterback competition today at camp. Here's how I saw the winner. Here's who was better today." They want to be in control of the narrative. They don't want that. This is what we're doing this year. We believe in it. We're gonna let. Who was the last team that had a quarterback competition?
Can I say this? It's funny, and we're gonna have this conversation all off season too. And I hate that we even have to have it now, but we're going to have this conversation all off season. At the end of the day, none of what we say matters. None of it. Because it's what Kyle Shanahan thinks. And again, I'm not trying to say that Kyle should think like this, but would anybody be absolutely shocked if Kyle thinks that he's making Brock Purdy and has that ego about him? Would that be a shocker? He couldn't
make Trey Lance Brock Purdy.
That's true, but maybe he thinks Trey Lance.
He couldn't make C.J. Beathard Brock Purdy. He couldn't make Nick Mullins Brock. He couldn't make Jimmy Garoppolo Brock Purdy. What's happening with the offense right now is different, and maybe it's not sustainable. But they got to find out why this is so different.
Maybe he thinks it's CMC. Maybe I'm just
maybe.
All I'm saying is I wouldn't put anything past Kyle, right? And so basically, at the end of the day, it's whatever Kyle Shanahan wants and what he thinks.
No, it's not whatever Kyle Shanahan wants. It's also the locker room.
I mean, they would have wanted Jimmy. Jimmy wasn't here. Jimmy wasn't the starter this year.
Jimmy wasn't in training camp. Jimmy was hanging around, not on the team.
Because of their choice. They wanted Jimmy to be here.
And they celebrated. And they celebrated when Jimmy came back.
They did.
There wasn't a choice in training camp. Jimmy wasn't on the field. If there had been a choice, Jimmy would have won because the locker room wanted him. And Kyle has not been willing to overrule his locker room. That's why Trey didn't play as a rookie. That's why they didn't have a 2-quarterback system. He wanted one. They were like, no, Kyle. And that's an issue here is that Brock is clearly winning over Brandon Aiyuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, everyone. To no fault of Trey's. This is happening in front of our eyes. And so really Trey's best opportunity right now is if and when Brock gets hurt. Just come in and show what you are. But I don't see how they just make Trey the starter next year, man. Unless Brock freaking blows it in the in playoffs. And I know you say have a competition. I just feel like coaches don't want him. They don't want to have him. In an ideal world, you do it. You have 2 a day. In the 80s, you'd have freaking practice all day. You could have as many reps as you want. Now, reps are at a premium. And now you're cutting them in half for your eventual starter. I mean, the Niners are slow starters anyway. Their offense is terrible until November anyway. Now you're saying your starter's only going to get half the reps? I can see Kyle being a little uneasy about that.
By the way,
I'm saying there won't be a quarterback competition next year. I'm predicting it right now.
By the way, I would go the other way on this. If Brock Purdy comes out and flops and throws 5 interceptions, I still want a quarterback competition instead of just crowning Trey as well. Like, this goes both ways. I want to be clear. Like, I'm not trying to insert what I think into this. I'm trying to remove what everybody thinks about this situation because ultimately Kyle Shanahan has his thoughts and he's going to make that decision. Now, is he going to factor in what the locker says? Sure. All those things come into play, but ultimately at the end of the day, he's going to decide whether there's a competition, whether he's starting Trey, whether he's starting Brock. And we're going to talk about it ad nauseum, but none of what we think actually matters. Like, that's just the reality of the situation.
It's going to be a very difficult situation. Maybe Kyle Shanahan does do a competition just to be fair and say, you know what, I don't want to pick sides. And I just see, unless something drastic happens, Brock's going to start week 1. And he's going to keep starting until he gets hurt, or unless he falls apart. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, so and it may.
They can do what they want. They can have a quarterback competition, but I just don't see how Trey wins it. I don't see how he does. And it's not his fault because it's really not a fair competition. This dude's playing now in games that matter and killing it. Adam says, so bummed for Lance. I want to win this year, but I also want Lance to get a freaking shot at it. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Gammon Brown says that, Grant, don't put a limiter on your mic or show. Abu Marco
You're basically funding the show at this point, Gammon, so whatever you say goes.
Issue is Brock doesn't have to build to last an entire season. Our Super Bowl window is open for the next 2 years, maybe 3. Have multiple great quarterbacks. Sure. I'm
He's just
Mr. 9.
basically saying he's small. I get it. Like, he's already been hurt. I could see a scenario where he gets hurt again. Yeah. Have a
Mr. 99
quarterback.
says, I think Kyle would still move to Trey even if Purdy won a Super Bowl. Hear me out. Kyle's got to take credit, you know? It was my offense, not Purdy. Wow. I don't think Kyle's that bold. I don't think he is.
I could see, here's what I will say, Grant. I could see a genuine discussion from Kyle if they don't win a Super Bowl, even if they get to an NFC championship, because they moved off of Jimmy after a Super Bowl and an NFC championship appearance. They drafted Trey because they didn't want Jimmy's skill set. And I'm not saying that Purdy's skill set is the same, but they wanted that dynamic, big arm, big bodied quarterback. That's what he coveted. That's what he wanted. He talked about Josh Allen. He talked about using Trey the way that he did Josh Allen. If they get to just an NFC championship again, I could see a scenario where it's like, yeah, Brock's cool, but he's still not what I want. He's not what I would have drafted. Or if I'm building a quarterback, he's not who I want. We've made it to an NFC championship. We've made it to a Super Bowl. This is no different.
How
I'm going with the guy that I took.
You be though, if you're scoring 33 points per game and you're like, that's not my style of scoring 33
if you
points
lose an
per
NFC
game,
championship,
why'd you lose?
I don't know. I'm
So
just
we didn't
saying
go
you
there
didn't
yet.
make it.
If they lose because they lose 37-34, is it Brock's fault? We don't know.
Yeah,
But
you're right. I mean, you're right. There's multiple ways to lose a game. We could see how it goes, but there is a scenario where it's like we've done. But this is the third time we've done this. We were willing to move off the other guy. Why would we not be willing to move off this guy if we spent everything to go get Trey Lance, the player that I wanted? It's not like we pushed over and got the ring. So what are we doing here? Are we going to continue to flop and make
did
it
he want Trey Lance or did he want Mac Jones and he traded up for him and was told we're not allowed to take Mac Jones with the third pick? I don't know, man, because he's never, ever, ever, ever taken a quarterback like Trey Lance ever before or ever again. He has a type. Brock Purdy fits it. I'm just saying, man, he loves being the micromanager, man. Does he want to go down the field? Brock Purdy goes down the field well enough. Brock Purdy moves well enough. I feel like what he wanted Trey Lance to add to this offense, Brock's adding it now, minus the zone read, counter bash, blah, 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 blah. And they're scoring 35 points a game. So I don't know, man. Maybe if Trey was in here, they'd be scoring 36 points a game. But at a certain point, you just say, I'm grateful that we're so good on offense, and maybe it works, and I don't know why. Like I'm sure Bill Walsh would have loved to coach John Elway in the 80s, but he had Joe Montana, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
I just say thank you. But I don't know. Maybe we'll stop working on Saturday. We'll see. Scotty B, thank you. Kevin says, Grant, how do you feel the demand to produce lots of content affects the accuracy of your analysis? I don't know. I feel like my analysis is awfully inaccurate most of the time. So I don't feel like the more or the less I do, I'm usually going to be wrong. So thanks for watching. Damon Rice says Trey Lance is suddenly becoming Mr. Irrelevant. Hey, can we stop with that Mr. Irrelevant pun? It's not clever. Rafi Campbell says, I love that Brock Purdy got Kingsbury fired twice.
So true. So true.
Chris Walker says, did the trade for Lance sting less knowing that these last two first-rounders were 29th and high 20s or 30s this year? I mean, if Brock Purdy ends up being a franchise quarterback, they found one. Just pretend you gave those picks for Brock.
That's exactly the way that I
Just
do
pretend.
it. Because for as bad as the Trey Lance trade looks, you look just as good for drafting. You know what I mean? Yeah. They offset each other.
They totally offset each other. I'm Mr. 99 says Lance didn't have half the weapons Grant. It's true. And, Lance played early in the season when the offense is disjointed. When he played late in the season last year, the whole offense was clicking. He clicked. They look good. So, and maybe part of the reason Brock looks good is he came in so late when the offense was clicking. I asked Aiyuk after the game, why is the offense so much better now than earlier? And he said, we really aren't good early in the season. We don't play in the preseason. Yeah. That's when Trey Lance was playing. He played in the preseason. No one else did.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Abated Impala says Brock is attempting to control the narrative, starting with the locker room. Purdy expects to go to the Super Bowl and has made efforts to get the locker room on his side. Well, you wouldn't?
Yeah.
He's freaking smart. So did Trey. Steve M says there's also a world where BP gets hurt and we're back to square one. Trey. Yeah, it's football. Deontay says Brock has literally been the number one quarterback in the league statistically since week 13. Trey has not earned a quarterback competition outside the draft. Picks for him. The one thing that kind of scares me, though, is it kind of feels like the Tua situation. Like, look what McDaniel did with Tua. Had him as the number one quarterback in the league, but it's still Tua.
Tua was rated number one in almost
Right.
everything too. It's funny because that was the conversation I was having with Dolphins fans leading up to that week. They're like, "You've never seen a guy like Tua," and I'm like, "We just saw Patrick Mahomes." Like, statistics are great, but at some point, like if you put, and this is no knock on Purdy, but if you put Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes,
Right.
Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Brock Purdy there. Brock Purdy is going last, and it's not even close. I'm sorry.
Right.
And I'm not saying that maybe eventually he does earn to be in that conversation. But if you want to say, well, I took Brock Purdy first because statistics, like, you look stupid.
True. But I mean, a big reason why he's successful is because he's so cheap and he has a great team around him that other teams that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen can't have. Because, well, I think Allen's making $8 million this year. Zay Torres says if it really is an open comp, I think Trey's skill set is limited in the camp setting. He needs reps as a passer. He's going to play a losing game. I just don't see how you beat out a guy who's been in the playoffs and you haven't. It just seems like you're set up to fail. Bus 301 says, do you think the Niners are worried about the rain conditions? No.
I don't.
The Niners moved on from Joe. They can move on from Purdy. Yeah, Joe was like 35. Andrew Flores says if Lance is the guy, he should win the quarterback competition. If not, he needs to be the backup. You need two quarterbacks in the NFL now. Easy peasy.
Yeah, I think we both agree. Keep them both. Like, there's no scenario where I would trade either one. I just like to make the conversation interesting and say, okay, well, let's flip this thing around. Like, why not have that conversation?
I don't think they will trade Trey Lance, but I think they should if they decide that he's the backup. If they keep Trey Lance, they have to have a quarterback competition and almost a two quarterback system. You can't put him on the bench for another year. You have to have serious misgivings or questions about Brock and serious belief in Trey. Otherwise, if you're like, we love Brock and he's our starter, but we want Trey because you need a good backup, I don't think that justifies it. I don't. I think you can get a good backup for cheaper, and you can sell Trey Lance before his value drops lower. But we don't know how the Niners feel about Brock, and it's all going to be based on the playoffs anyway, so I guess we should just wait. Let's change the subject. Are the Niners an offensive or a defensive team?
Man, this is so interesting because I think when we look at the 49ers, we say the pedigree of this team is defensive. And Pete Carroll said it also. I'm not so sure that that's what it is anymore, Grant. I know that this is the number one defense, but the identity of this team as a defensive team has produced 0 Super Bowls. Going back to the Harbaugh era, to be real, I mean, they were a defensive team then, and it just hasn't worked out. I think this team might be turning into an offensive team right in front of our eyes because they do have a quarterback that can go out and make the throws that they need him to make. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive coach. I mean, that's what he was brought in to do, was come in and score a lot of points. We've been talking about it for 5 years. Why don't you score more points? Why don't you score more points? And even in 2019, when they were scoring points, it seemed almost fake. There was underlying things to why. That is not the case anymore. This team is just flat out scoring points. I think that they're becoming an offensive team, and I think it's going to be the offense that is ultimately going to have to win this Super Bowl at some point, because at some point, these other quarterbacks are good enough, especially in the Super Bowl, where they're going to put up a lot of points. And when that situation happens, the defense is just going to wilt. And can Brock Purdy and this offense overcome and win a shootout? That tells me that this team is going to have to win on offense eventually, especially probably in the big game. I think this team is an offensive team, which is crazy to say.
It's not necessarily that they're more talented on offense, although they're very talented on offense. I think what's interesting is, like, the book is sort of out on the defense. There is a clear game plan as to how to attack the Niners defense, and teams are sort of have had some success with it, even with backup quarterbacks recently. And it's, go down the field. Take shots down the field. If you just dink and dunk, you're going to lose. And so far, like, that's been giving the Niners problems. And the burden is on D'Amico to adjust. With the offense, there's no book on the Niners offense with Brock Purdy. They have the entire league on its heels, and the burden is on the league to adjust. The Niners can just keep doing what they're doing on offense, and they have, like, the element of surprise. So, yeah, I would have to say that it's not a fluke that they keep scoring 33, 37 points. And it is a bit of a concern that the Niners defense got ran through by a 6-10 Jarrett Stidham. I mean, Jarrett Stidham looked awful the week after. He didn't look good. He looked good against the Niners, though. That was bad.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, just player for player, the offense might be more talented than the defense, which is crazy to think. I think there's just a lot of talent on this team all the way around. But if we just said, all right, let's go player for player, I think the defense might run out of players before the offense.
They're better in
does.
the trenches on the defense, but I mean, their skill on the perimeter on the offense are really loaded.
Yeah.
Yep. Deontay says, "What is the difference between Purdy and Burrow?" I mean, about 3 bank accounts.
5 ounces in 2 vehicles. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, damn, man, like a little bit. Maybe he's mini Burrow. You feel he's like Burrow Jr. Mini JB.
I mean, I think the difference at this point is that Burrow's proven it and has gone to a Super Bowl with not ideal offensive line conditions.
It's true. I would think that actually Purdy's a little quicker than Burrow, but Burrow's bigger and has a stronger arm. Abu Marco 23 says out there, thought if Brock wins the Super Bowl and locks in the starter role, can Lance be converted to another? No.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. 100% no. Thank you for your question, Abu Marco. I'm poor says Gino has 0 playoff starts, same as Purdy. True.
I don't trust Gino at all.
No. Justin Lee says people want to act like the last game with the Seahawks was close when we missed an uncharacteristic field goal and kneeled at the 1 yard line to end the game. That is absolutely 100% true. It's true.
Yep.
It's true. Bobe TV says, why would you trade a guy that is in a rookie contract and in this game you're 1 injury away from costing you a season, keep them both for future runs? I don't want to repeat myself and do it again, but if you want to see why I feel like it might be worthwhile thinking about trading him, go back. I laid it out, but yeah, we don't need to do that argument again. What about RBL Posse, Bay Area Legends? Yeah, they made the Bammer Weed song, which is classic, but other than that, I didn't really like RBL Posse that much. I'm sorry. That's me personally. Matthew Sanders says, oh shit, I didn't know we had Jesse tonight. Guys, if this is the last 49ers after dark of the season, cheers to you boys. Over under, we get another one this season.
Oh, this is not the last. They are going to win. We'll be back next week.
Can you imagine the 2019 running game with Brock Purdy? Oh, that's a good point. Because they would actually have a play-action passing game to go with it.
Yeah, I know.
Miguel says, I don't see the genius who trades Lance after seeing Brock for half a season. What happened to Wentz, Kyler Murray, Mac Jones? Every year is different. It's fair. That's fair. Let's see what happens in the playoffs before we make a decision. Mm-hmm. Before we do the over-under, what is DeMeco Ryans? How can DeMeco Ryans put the defense in the best position to succeed?
So I'm just trying to look at the landscape of the NFC. And what I'm seeing is a lot of big-bodied, fast receivers. I can look at CeeDee Lamb. I can look at A.J. Brown. Buddy over in Tampa. I don't know why. Oh, Mike Evans. Jefferson. Buddy. Jefferson, not necessarily his big body, but he's lethal. I think one thing he has to do is make sure that he protects Lenoir the best he can. Some of these teams have 2 receivers, and that's going to be tough. But especially with the big body guy, DK Metcalf, they need to just have Ward travel. Ward has to travel and take that big-bodied receiver. Make it easier because Lenoir is very similar to what we saw with Ambry Thomas last year, where he's frequently in the area to make the play. He's just not tracking the ball. And when you've got a guy who is that much bigger than him, you not tracking the ball is a problem because they already are going to outjump you to most likely get it. So if you're not in great position to attack the ball and attack the hands to make that play, you're going to get beat deep frequently. They can stop all of that or most of that by just having Ward travel the way he did against DK the last time that they played. They need to do that with Evans, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, all of them. If they face any of those teams, he has to be the guy that travels, and then let Lenoir get the smaller body guy who still may be fast, may be an issue and cause some problems, but it's not as big of a deal if you're not tracking the ball. That's the way that I see it.
I like that very much. That's a great suggestion. I got another suggestion that's small. Have Gibson be over the top of Lenoir, not Hufanga.
Okay.
Have a safety who actually stays in his position as
I like
opposed
that.
to Hufanga. Let Hufanga go, freelance on the other side of the field where Charvarius Ward is holding it down. Let Gibson hang back over the top of Lenore because they're going to go deep, and he's quite a good ball hawk over there. That's what I would say. I think they might have made that adjustment in the last game.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I think both of those is a great way to protect the other side of the secondary. And I think that's the biggest concern. So
they're not going to take shots at Charvarius. You know where they're going to take shots, so tilt your defense that way.
Right.
I think they did in the last game.
Yeah.
So,
although it was Blau, so it's a small sample size.
He was phenomenal. Steve M says if the Niners win the Super Bowl, they should send a care package to the Panthers. They already sent them like 1 million draft picks. I got to send them a care package too. Bus 301 says over under 42.5 total score on Sunday.
Oh, that must be the Vegas bet. I got under.
Under? Wow, it's going to be like that, huh? Okay, all right. I can see that. Grant, tell your baby mama, leave me alone. Father Tom. All right, appreciate it. All right, let's play the over under the game.
Grant, 2 weeks in a row we've tied. It's not a good way to.
So unsatisfying.
You know what happened is much like the 49ers, we didn't take the over under game seriously the final 2 weeks, and we ended up tying.
Yeah, we just really coasted in the
playoffs.
Yeah.
It showed in our performance. Okay, let's get a winner this week, especially for the playoffs, because it's win or go home. Offense. Does Brock Purdy throw for 220.5 passing yards?
Dog, you're calling me right now?
No, you're calling me. It says you're calling me.
What is that?
You are calling. Grant's calling me, guys. This is a clone.
What is going on?
It says that I'm calling you?
Yes.
Whoa.
We're
being hacked.
Weird.
That is super weird.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
I was calling to let you hey, we gotta hurry up.
I was like, dog, we're talking right now. You don't have to call me. We could just get all right.
That was really weird. Okay.
Super weird.
That's super weird. All right. 220.5 passing yards for Brock Purdy.
You'd think I'd be prepared, right? Like you sent me this 10 hours ago. I could have figured this out. Over under. Okay. Over.
Yeah, I'm winning this week. Under. It's a rain game. It's a rain game. Why are you calling me again? It says.
Again! What is this?
Let's answer and see what it does. Oh, just ended.
Next time we will. Let's do it.
Yeah, right, okay. That's super creepy. Okay, I'm going to go under because it's going to be raining a ton. I expect that the 49ers are going to run the ball a lot. I'm going to take the under here.
I'm picking the over because I'm not sure it's going to be raining during the game, and I think it's pretty clear that the Seahawks are going to stop the run, and the Niners are more than willing to pass when teams do that. So I think we're going to try to make a statement. We'll see what happens.
I like it. Okay. Over under 145.5 rushing yards for the offense.
Over. I think they're going to pile up a bunch of yards. I think they will. I think over. A lot of yards for the Niners. I don't know how many points. It's a bend but don't break defense over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think they go over here as well. All right.
Yeah. I'm hedging essentially. Over. Yeah.
Yeah, just all over. I got you. Does Kittle get in the end zone again? Over or under 0.5 touchdowns?
Good question. I'm going to say no.
Says you're calling me again.
All right, we got to see this.
All right.
What? Who are you? Hello?
Nothing.
I don't even hear you. There's no one.
That's so weird.
That's freaking scary. Someone knows us both and is messing with us. Someone knows us and has tech. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm blocking you.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
Blocked.
What was the question?
Kittle. Does he get in the end zone?
No, I'm going to say no. Carroll's a good coach, game planner. He knows that the Niners have scored like 7 touchdowns out this way the last 4 games. You got to double Kittle in the red zone. It'll just lead to other people getting touchdowns.
I think he gets in the end zone again. I just think there's too many weapons, man. And him and Purdy have a great connection. I think he gets in the end zone again. So I'm going to go over.
I feel you.
Okay. Deebo Samuel, over under 5.5 touches this game. This one's hard.
5.5. Oof. I feel like over, even though he shouldn't. Like over. It doesn't. Aiyuk, they will freeze him out for quarters at a time if he like looks at Kyle Shanahan wrong. But Deebo, over.
I'm gonna go under.
Ooh.
I mean, if it's over, Grant, then the whole conversation about what's the plan for Deebo out the window because they clearly have a plan in place. I think that there's too many mouths to feed. Ultimately, I'm gonna go under on this one.
Okay.
All right. Do the 49ers turn the ball over this game? Over, under 0.5 turnovers?
Over. Rainy, slippery. It's the Seahawks. I think it's going to be a very physical game. There could be fumbles. Or interceptions. Just turnovers in general. Over.
Yeah. Just turnovers in general. I'm going to go over as well. If they throw an interception, I could see it being Diggs. Like, that's what I visually could see happening. Fumble could happen with the rain as well, or wet field. Yeah, I agree. Over. All right, let's go to the defensive side. Over, under 2.5 sacks for this defense.
Wow, that's the game right here, right? If it's
they got
less,
3 last week.
They could lose. They got 3 last week? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say over, but if it's under, the Niners have huge problems. How many times did they sack Geno Smith the first 2 times? I feel like a bunch. Maybe I'm wrong.
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
I don't know.
I know last week they got 3. That's it, but
okay, over.
They go under. I think a wet field. At the very least, the field's probably going to be sloppy. So I think that makes it really tough for the defensive line to get off. I'm going to go under. I think they get 2 sacks. All right, Geno Smith over under 220.5 passing yards.
Over.
Damn it. I thought you'd say under.
Yeah.
They're going to be behind. They're going to have to throw. I agree. They're going to go over.
Yeah.
They're going to go over. Okay. Over under 80.5 rushing yards. Kenneth Walker, I believe, has 3 weeks in a row where he's gone over 100 yards.
80.5?
Since they played the 49ers? 80.5.
Over.
Oh, this is going to be the game decider right here.
Right here.
I'm going under.
Hold on. Can we go back to the Geno Smith one? What were the sacks? What were the sacks one? What were the sacks? How many?
2.5. What'd they get left?
Because they got up 2 in the first one and 3 in the second one. I'm gonna change it to under. I'm going under.
Okay. All right. We're both under on that one. All right.
Under. Yeah.
Rushing yards, you said under?
Over.
Or over? Okay. I'm going under. I'm taking the under. Okay. All right. 1.5 forced turnovers for the 49ers. Did they get 2 or more?
Under. Was it 80 for Kenneth Walker or the Seahawks in general?
For just rushing in total. So it could come from Geno. It could come from anybody.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, sweet. I'm with that.
Did you say under on the turnovers? 1.5?
Under, yeah, that's a lot. I don't think they're going to force 2 turnovers. And even though they forced 1 million last week.
Man. I'm going to go over. I think Geno throws one. I think they also might fumble. I'm going to go over. Okay. Over, under 1.5 touchdowns given up by the defense.
1.5 touchdowns. Over.
I'm going under.
Okay.
All right. I think we might not tie this week. That'd be great.
I think we might. Yeah, that was a good one.
You stopped calling me, and I think we might not tie, so that's good.
Whoever did that, grow up, first of all. Around Town Collective says, first 49ers offense in years that I have faith will score a touchdown in the red zone.
What?
Man, I get so many robocalls. Around Town Collective says, first 49ers offense in years that I have faith will score a touchdown in the red zone rather than settling for 3. It's a pleasure to watch.
It is.
It is.
I agree.
It's just a pleasure. Sean says the D-line needs to get pressure. Needs to get pressure. If they do that, we win. If they don't, Brock Purdy will need to carry the team. Yeah, we need that pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
Scotty B says Andy Reid is 16-19 in the playoffs with McNabb, Vic, Mahomes with 1 Super Bowl win. Reid is 5-1 and done playoff appearances, underachiever. Kyle is 4-2 with Jimmy. Stop the Kyle hate.
Got to get a ring, man. Got to get a ring.
Who's hating Kyle? We've been talking for an hour and 24. Who's hating Kyle?
Stop the Kyle hate.
Stop the Kyle hate. Why not use Womack instead of Lenore? Because according to Aiyuk, both of them are slow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kevin Crittenden says, have you peeked into the rabbit hole of NFL rigged YouTube people out there thinking the game is scripted down to each and every play? Wild.
I've seen this. Yeah, up into like it goes wild. Like there's a magnet in the ball so they can control it if it's caught and if it's not, like some really wild stuff. So
opinion on Weezer. They have a few good songs. I mean, I'm not cool. Like throwing on the blue album or the green album and just playing it through and like, you know, they're
Weezer's not bad.
No, it's everyone loves what's that song? Buddy Holly and Say It Ain't So. Like those are two songs that most people would like if you put them on at the pub and you were, had a few drinks and you could sing along to them.
Yeah. Good karaoke songs.
Absolutely. Okay, that's the show.
Group karaoke.
No doubt. And so is Blink 182 if you have to say, if you think about it. Cuz Blink 182, like they were kind of like punk rock, but it was definitely during the NSYNC era and it was very boy bandy. It was like the poppiest pop punk band of all time, and I think they played their role exquisitely. They knew their position. I like it.
I mean, it's not like really a story, but fun fact, the only concert I've ever been into in my life is a Blink 182 concert.
You've only been to one concert in your life?
That's it, yeah.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, no. I enjoyed it. I mean, I was young. I was super young, but yeah, I did.
In Portland?
Travis Barker, they had him like seat belted into the drum set, and the stage lifted upside down and they lit it on fire and he was playing the drums upside down. It was pretty slick.
I don't understand why he got so famous, and there was like a 10-year period where if a rap song got famous enough, there would be like a Travis Barker remix where he would like, no, please no.
And now he's with the Kardashian.
Yeah. It rains a lot in Seattle. Could this be an advantage for the Seahawks? It rains a lot here recently, man. I think the Niners are well-versed in precipitation. Thanks for watching. Jesse, are you streaming anymore tonight?
Yeah. In 1 minute, well, probably like 2 minutes, I'll be live over at Last Second Sports with Sunil, who's so real.
He's so real. Huge Blink fan, got them tattooed. That's good to know. Good knowledge. Have a great show. Have a great night, everyone. Go watch So Real Sunil and Jesse, who is a celebrity. Good to see you.